Okay, let's talk some trade rumors as I do this title of a video for the millionth time. Gonna be a lot of Markkanen and Ingram. I plan on doing a video on Summer League as well as Team USA when that really gets cold. We've only had one game so far against Canada. It was a good time, but yeah, let's do some trade stuff and let's just go right to Markkanen and just to cite some sources, even if everybody knows that there's been trade talks with him and a lot of it's been around the Warriors. But Mark Stein, Zach Lowe, Brian Windhorst, Tony Jones, all of these guys have talked about Markkanen and potentially the Warriors as like the big team, right? And I'm sure we all know this by now. Markkanen is eligible for an extension starting August 6th, and once he signs that extension, he cannot be traded for 6 months, and so if he signs it on the 6th, then there is only one day of next season he can be traded, which would be February 6th, the trade deadline. And if he signs that extension just one day past the 6th, then he can't be traded for this whole entire upcoming season. But of course, he can be traded before he agrees to that extension. Another interesting thing, if that extension does happen on the 6th or whatever, is it going to be the max? Is it going to be a little below the max? Anyway, the big thing with this really is if the Jazz believe that they can pull off a rebuild while keeping Markkanen, which they could very much believe. I mean, for everything I'm going to talk about in this video, they don't have to trade him, because for the last 2 years, they've been in the 30s in wins, and they've started out better than what people thought they would, and then they tank super hard in the second half of the year, right? And they've got a lot of interesting young guys. I mean, Keontae George, the flashes he showed as a tough shot maker and a playmaker were there in his rookie season, but I mean, he was a rookie point guard, so okay. I think by now we all know that Walker Kessler just had a weird second year where they brought John Collins in, and the lineup stuff got really weird between Kessler, Collins, and Markkanen, and that combined with Kessler offensively having limitations and just having weird body language stuff. Like, it was a weird second season for him, but his rim protection is still great. They got Cody Williams with the 10th pick. Scouts believe that he can grow into a strong all-around guy, but I mean, we have to just see it first. I think Taylor Hendricks has a lot of two-way potential, but also it's just got to happen on a more consistent role. Sexton and Clarkson are here as well. I mean, really, this just comes down to a few things, right? It's either the Jazz acquire a number of win-now guys around Markkanen at the expense of some of their future picks, because, of course, they have a lot of them and some of these young guys. And there has been a little bit of, would they trade Kessler for a draft pick? That has heated up over the past week or so. I'll talk about that at the end of the vid. Or they find a way to tank or just get really lucky in the lottery to where they get one of the top picks and go for Cooper Flag or whoever this year. Or they need multiple of these dudes to really hit like that. While Markkanen is now 27 and has shown no signs of wanting to leave Utah. And also, I probably should have said this one earlier, but their pick is top 10 protected this upcoming season. And so I feel like the doomsday scenario for the Jazz would be if they just have another season where they win 30-something games and they end up with like the 11th pick and they just don't get their pick at all. And even then, if they end up with the 9th pick or the 10th pick or whatever, that doesn't necessarily mean they're on a treadmill, but it might mean they're on a treadmill. Just kind of running in place, So when it comes to keeping Markkanen, like, there's really like one of two ways you can go. The optimistic side is they can pull off this rebuild while keeping him. The pessimistic side is he makes them too good. They're never going to get a top pick, all that stuff. So anyway, will they trade him? I just think it comes down to if you give him an insane offer. I mean, we know this is Danny Ainge. We know how he operates. He wants all the picks. He wants to win the trade and then some, right? And so now the Warriors come in because they've been the number one team talked about. There's been a little bit of King stuff, a little bit of Spurs stuff. It's mostly been about the Warriors. And I mean, the fit there, it just kind of speaks for itself, right? Because Markkanen has gotten so good at playing off the ball in Will Hardy's offense, right? Like, they run down screens for him. He screens for whoever on or off the ball, then he'll immediately pop or flash out to three. He's got the quick release at that size, just a great shooter at that size. I mean, he's a great cutter. He's able to attack off the catch and drive and the whole thing. Like, Markkanen and Steph existing in the Warriors offense, and just two guys that you really have to take into account. And I mean, we already know how much Steph moving off ball freaks out defenses. You put Markkanen into that as well, it would be really good. Now, do I think that they would immediately jump up to title contenders? No. The Western Conference is extremely competitive. But I'm just a guy, what do I know? And again, they've been in the rumors. Now, one thing with Markkanen, you can just go down his games played throughout his career. He's actually never played 70 games in one season. And he's had some 50-game years. Now, granted, 2 of those seasons were shortened seasons, so you cut him a little bit of slack, but still, I don't think it's something to completely ignore. Anyway, they can only offer 2 unprotecteds in a Markkanen deal or any deal because the Stepien rule, you can only go every other year on unprotecteds, and they already owe it 2030, so it just kind of gets weird. But you can do 2 unprotecteds, and then you can do, protection swaps on the other ones. If I got any of that wrong, my bad. As far as the players, it should be said, Markkanen only makes $18 million, and so therefore, you don't have to put together a crazy amount of salary to get to a number to where the trade is valid, right? Anyway, is Kuminga moving or what? So, I believe that Markkanen makes the Warriors better right now than Kuminga does. Okay, we saw what Kuminga showed off this previous season, like getting downhill, just being a physical force at times. also in the post, and just overwhelming NBA defenders and scoring, and him figuring out when he can cut in the flow of the Warriors offense and all that. I mean, the dude's physical tools are crazy. Like, there is a world in which he can be a hell of an all-around player. But as far as, like, making split-second reads, making passes, just when the defense is collapsing, where's the open guy, all that stuff, team defense, rotations, all that, he's got some ways to go there, but his physical gifts are crazy. And it was because of those physical gifts that he went on a decently long run in, like, the mid to second half of the season where, like, he was putting up 20-point games. But still, I think Markkanen makes them better right now. Now, the one thing with all that, if Kuminga was potentially in the deal, is the Jazz would have to be willing to give him an extension because he just played his third season now, right? And we don't know how the Jazz feel about Kuminga. And if it wasn't going to be that, then it would have to be like a Pods Moody type of situation where, I mean, Moody's going to be up for an extension in a little bit here, and he has not been able to really crack the Warriors rotation. Like, he's gotten minutes, but he hasn't really been in the rotation like that. He's averaging like 16, 17 minutes a game. And the Warriors like Pods, so we'll see. Look, Markkanen definitely makes them better. Whatever trade you want to imagine, he improves them, no doubt about it. But my guess will be, if the Warriors really want Markkanen, then it's either going to be Pods or Kuminga in the deal. I don't think both of them are going to be in the move. Would not be surprised to see Moody in the deal. I think if Kuminga's not in the move, and again, this depends a lot on if the Jazz want Kuminga or not, got to extend him, that whole thing. But I would imagine, like, if the Jazz value Kuminga like that, I would like to think that the Warriors would be able to keep maybe one or two picks compared to if Kuminga's not in the deal, then at that point it might be more of a heavy picks-based thing, unless the Jazz are just, like, really in love with Pods as a prospect. But, I mean, it's Danny Ainge. Like, for all I know, he just might want everything. And again, Markkanen, he only makes $18 million, so, I mean, you're looking at GP2 as well as Looney's contracts as the obvious throw-ins to get the money to work. Wouldn't have to be both, but, like, either one. Now, one thing with all this is, well, even though Steph is still great, and he's good enough to where you seriously consider a move like this, he is in his mid-30s, and how scary is it to move picks in the distant future because of that? Well, I do think getting Markkanen also makes it a little easier to do that. I mean, he's 27. But yeah, it's possible if the Warriors end up moving a bunch of picks way out there for this move, and then we eventually get there many years down the road from now, and then it's like, ooh, crap, we don't have a whole lot of picks. Like, yeah, I mean, listen, man, you got Steph Curry. Like, sometimes you just do it. As far as other potential Markkanen teams, I mean, if the Spurs wanted to, they could probably get him. I mean, they've got excess picks, but they have not been as heavy in the rumors for him like the Warriors have. I mean, yeah, Markkanen and Wemby would be nuts. You don't need me to tell you that. And then as far as the Kings for Markkanen, I mean, of course, they made the DeRozan trade, and there hasn't really been anything in like 4 or 5 days, which, of course, coincides with them getting DeRozan. So I don't know. And there was like a very small amount of Miami Markkanen stuff, like nothing too crazy. I'll just say, like, yeah, he'd be a perfect fit there, but Miami already is out on some picks. And also, until the Heat show that they are really willing to enter the dance to trade a bunch of stuff for a star, I'm just going to assume they don't do it. Okay, let's talk Brandon Ingram. So, it seems like two things are true here, where the Pelicans do not want to give Brandon Ingram a max, and they also don't want to lose him for nothing. Well, I'm just kind of assuming on that second one. They definitely don't want to give him a max. And so it's either the Pelicans and Ingram meet in the middle, or he's going to get moved somewhere. The thing with that, though, is that the Kings were the one team that was connected to Ingram like that, but then they got DeRozan, and, I mean, the Kings still have been in the rumors a little bit. There's some Kyle Kuzma stuff there. I am going to guess that after getting DeRozan, Brandon Ingram is not going to end up on the Kings. And so then you are just kind of searching for someone to trade for. I mean, look, Ingram's good, okay? I get it. Preference for mid-range. Catch and shoot threes are not as much as you would like. He is a good passer. I mean, he's been over 5 assists a game for a minute now, but also you don't want Brandon Ingram running the show. And then as far as the Pelicans specifically, I mean, I've said this many times, like, the best version of this team is with Herb Jones and Trey Murphy on the court together. Murphy, because he's just a gunslinger from three and on deep threes as well. Herb Jones, one of the best defensive players in the league. Obviously, Zion's not moving. You just got DeJounte. Ingram does end up in an awkward spot, even if, of course, you can mess with lineups however you want to. Now, I know that many people I've seen online have suggested some sort of Brandon Ingram to Cleveland, Jared Allen going back to the Pelicans thing. The only thing that I've seen on Jared Allen is Kenny Atkinson, their new coach, saying, we don't want to trade him. So there's that. And then I try to imagine teams for Ingram because there's just not a lot of teams really rumored for him right now. And so now I'm just thinking of anything. Like, for example, maybe the Warriors, if they can't get Markkanen, do you use Ingram as like a fallback option? I don't think Ingram fits in as well with how the Warriors play compared to the way Markkanen does. I'm not saying it would be a bad fit because getting more talent in the door is still good. And having somebody else who could just bail you out of a possession that's going nowhere because Steph can't do absolutely everything all the time for you, I mean, that's still nice to have. On top of that, Ingram makes more money right now than Markkanen does, which means you have to put more money in the deal. And sure, I imagine that the Pelicans' asking price for Brandon Ingram is not as high as what Danny Ainge's is for Markkanen. At the same time, my gut feeling just has me believing that if the Warriors don't get Markkanen, they're not going to make another big move this offseason. Of course, I'm just a guy, could be wrong. So, as I attempt to scan around the league and try to figure out a Brandon Ingram team for myself, it's like you can eliminate any team looking to tank. And the top teams in the league are either second aproned out to where it's very hard to make a trade, or they just don't have the assets to do anything anyway. Or they're just really good, in which case they just don't have to make a move. And then I'm left with teams that are not bad, but certainly need a little bit more, right? So you're looking at like Atlanta, who just used the top pick on Risa Shea, and also they got Jalen Johnson there on the wing spots. And also it's like, if the Hawks had any desire to get Brandon Ingram, we probably would have heard something by now this offseason about it. Similar thing with Miami. It's just tough to find the spot for Ingram, man. I mean, you look at Markkanen, right? And Markkanen shoots 40% from 3 on like 8 attempts a game, and he flies around off ball. It's very easy to fit him into a number of places. With Ingram, it's just tougher, even if he is a fine passer on the wing. Anyway, those are the main two. There has been a little bit of Jeremy Grant Lakers stuff, which there's two real holdups here. Number one, the Lakers are hugging the second apron, so it's just tough to do really anything. The second thing is the Blazers are asking for 2 distant, unprotected firsts, and that's probably a tough sell if you're the Lakers, even if LeBron continues to defy what we believe that NBA players can do at certain ages. Now, as far as the Blazers' asking price of 2 unprotected firsts, I mean, I think it just depends on the context here. If you're asking for a really good team's unprotected firsts in the not-so-distant future, then, like, yeah, that seems a little more possible. If you're asking for a team with 40-year-old LeBron James unprotected firsts 5 years down the road, the impression that I get is the Blazers will be content if Jeremy Grant is on their team coming into this season. I don't think they're desperate to move the guy. Actually, I would like to talk about the Walker Kessler stuff if we can go back to the Jazz if you're still watching the video at this point. So, if this stuff is real about the Jazz really being willing to move Kessler for some draft stuff, I'm not really sure I agree with it. I mean, I get it, like, you know, he's got limitations on offense, his free throws are not good, stuff like that, sure. But I'm assuming you can't get a lottery pick for him, so at that point it's like, do I want Walker Kessler or do I want the average 15th pick in the draft? I would rather have Walker Kessler because he definitely has one skill that he could be, he already is among the best in the league at. I mean, just to give you one stat, so this is just NBA.com, this is opponent field goal percentage when right at the rim, or within 6 feet technically. Rudy Gobert is 49%, Walker Kessler 51%. Like, he's right in the middle of all the best rim protectors. But I'm just a guy. They're the ones who have to consider extending him after his 3rd season. Should be said that there was something from Ian Begley where he said that the Jazz rejected an offer that had 2 firsts. We do not know the details. We don't know if they were protections. They could have been late in the draft. We don't know. But yeah, pretty much any team who has some sort of uncertainty around their center position, whether it's right now or maybe you've got an older center or whatever, I think you definitely got to think about it. Again, it depends on, what the Jazz are going to want for him, but yeah.